Hi, welcome everyone. My name is David LeBlanc, host of the Self-Sufficient You community. We are an online community based in Canada for like-minded people who are coming together to learn, share, connect, and prosper on our journeys towards increased choice, independence, and personal fulfillment. A large part of being more resilient and self-sufficient is having good health and wellness, including mental and emotional. So today I'm very pleased to be talking with Karen Jones, who runs a very popular and successful podcast called Rebel's Compass, which can be found on both YouTube and Facebook. The podcast is really wonderful in that it focuses on various aspects of developing personal resiliency, emotional change, and self-love while overcoming self-defeating thoughts. And we'll get into this and more during this conversation. Not only does Karen share her own thoughts and expertise on these subjects, but she also talks with different guests on her podcast who add another layer of richness and perspective and inspiration to the Rebels Compass podcast and the overall community. So Karen, it is fantastic to see you and welcome.
Thank you, David. I'm very happy to be here on this side of the fence.
I know, because I was on the other side of the fence a few times, had the honor of being interviewed by you on Rebels Compass. So why don't we kick it off by you sharing what is Rebels Compass?
So Rebels Compass is a platform to be able to share information and modalities. So I started Rebels Compass probably about 5 or 6 years ago with a really good friend of mine, Mel, who's now moved to BC. And we recognized that things were moving more to social media, and we wanted to connect to people and be able to share stories. And both of us were terrified of doing videos, and both of us were not at all savvy when it came to social media or anything like that. So because I'd done a couple of videos for a challenge once before, I got nominated to do the videos. And we started the community to be able to share stories of our journey. We found that people, when they gather and they share stories and they have that level of connection, you can identify with somebody else's journey and not feel so alone. And also to share different modalities that are out there and be able to explain what they are. Because through my years of being self-employed, my past life business, when I lived in the UK, I was a hairdresser. And you can share different things with people. Oh, have you heard about this? And people would nod and say, yeah, I've heard about that. And they may have heard about it, but they don't really know what it is. So through this platform of Rebels Compass, we wanted to bring in different modalities for people to be able to share what their modality and their passion was, and even to share how they even started into it, because very often life happens and it shoves you in a direction and you end up going down a path that you perhaps thought about but never thought you could until you get that shove in that direction. So Rebels being us stepping outside of the box, and the compass being the heart that directs us, that's how we came by the name Rebels Compass. And at the time, Mel was doing work training, doing shamanic work, and the compass represented the wheel and the energy wheel. So that's how the name was created. And it's just gone on over the years. And how it really took off was a few years ago, my dad passed away. And I did a very, very short video while I was in England saying that sorry for not being on Rebels Compass. I'm back in England. My dad passed away, and shared some of my experiences. And my son saw it, and my son, youngest son, who has a recording studio, said, Mum, you need to do more of these. So it became that level of just sharing and doing more of that.
I'm really sorry to hear about your father. So many people have lost loved ones over the past even just 3 years, and we weren't allowed to pay our due respects in an appropriate way. So hopefully we all continue, even though we didn't have that time, say at the funeral home or something, to keep everyone in our thoughts every day who deserve to be there. You mentioned social media and then storytelling. It's funny because when social media, probably first started, whenever that was, the idea probably behind it was probably to get more people together, right? You weren't limited to geography, but it's just become quite the opposite, where it's less connection with people, and it's become even toxic in some cases. So I'm a big believer in pendulums shifting, and when they get too far, they naturally want to come back to their equilibrium more in the center. And I feel like when it comes to people and connecting and communities, we're kind of at that tipping point where it's got to come back. And I really like the idea of storytelling. So tell us a little bit about some of the modalities that you discuss on your podcast.
So we discuss everything from massage therapy, cranial sacral, Heilkunst, energy
Never heard of
work,
that
which
one.
I had never heard of until I had this lady on, which is fascinating. So go and have a look, because I cannot do it justice in this moment to be able to share what her modality is. I've had people on talking about sacred femininity and how to connect with your own physical body. I've had people on with past lives, talking about past life experiences, connecting with dragons, people just sharing their own personal stories. I had a lady on a number of weeks ago that was talking about a brain hemorrhage that she had, and how she then turned that her whole life around and started doing things that she never thought that she could. So for me, the power of these stories is to share just how resilient we are, to share that feeling that you're not alone, that feeling that, I can be sat crying in my bedroom thinking this is the only person this is happening to, but you're not, and when we come together and share these stories and we gather that information, it gives us the encouragement to be able to move forward. I've shared my own stories on there. So my daughter transitioned from male to female, and I shared my own personal journey as a mum on Rebels and her journey. So I'm open to multiples of different kinds of conversations and sharing with people, because I believe it's what's needed. And I completely agree with you, David, that I believe in the pendulum too, and it will swing one way to the complete extreme so that it can find its way back into balance. And for me, social media is a tool to be able to connect with people on the other side of the world that I wouldn't be able to connect with. But I much prefer in person. You feel somebody's energy, you get to connect with them in a very different way.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. When it comes to storytelling and the way you describe it, it's almost like we're sitting around the fire. It's the year's 1436 in England, and the community, the villagers are having, dinner around the fire, and the elders are talking and sharing their stories to the young people. And it's almost like I get that vision in my head when we talk about storytelling. It's people just sharing their experiences, their stories. You don't have to like it. It's their story. And it could be anything from entertaining to, awe-inspiring. It's however you interpret it and what you take from it. And like you said, some people use it as inspiration, encouragement to push on, and other people use it as, oh, I'm not crazy. There's others like me out there. And at the end of the day, it's all just very positive, just allowing people, encouraging people, creating a space for people to tell their stories.
Absolutely. And when you've gotten to the point where maybe you've had something traumatic happen to you, you've had a huge emotional experience, you got that proverbial 2x4, and you have gone through all of the emotion, you've crawled out of the basement and you've pulled your life back together, and it's changed your life in a way that you now have a depth of wisdom that you can share with somebody else that may be going through that level of pain, or can identify with aspects of that. That is huge to be able to do that. It's a gift in the experiences that we have when it takes us to rock bottom, to know that when you actually climb back out and you heal that process, and you can talk about that without any emotion being attached to it whatsoever, and you can be that light for somebody else. That's what lights me up, you know, to be able to share these stories so that nobody is sat in the dark. Nobody is sat alone, no matter where you are in the world, and know that there's somebody there that hears you. Because as human beings, we carry all of these limiting beliefs, and we believe nobody loves us, nobody hears us, nobody sees us, I'm not valued, nobody cares about me, nothing good ever happens to me. So when you finally hear a story that talks to your soul or speaks to your heart, then there's a level of connection there that maybe the support that would actually change that pattern of thinking for them, because now they don't think they're the only one going through it.
Self-limiting beliefs, now that is, everyone can associate with that and probably struggle with it to various degrees, probably mostly as an adult. It's probably something we learn maybe unconsciously in childhood, and then it exposes itself later in life when we're afraid to do a video, we're afraid to make a presentation at the office, we're afraid to meet somebody new. Hey, maybe they think I'm crazy, or why would they like me? There's so many different reasons. And I like your term when you always say unpeel the onion and
Yeah.
dig deeper into someone and what they're about. I just want to talk more about self-limiting beliefs, because it is most likely something that affects every human to various degrees. So what are some of the strategies maybe that you've learned, maybe even yourself, that could be shared with some others to maybe identify it, and then maybe what to do about it?
So exactly, self-limiting beliefs are something that are programmed into us unconsciously through our childhood. From 0 to 8, you're just a sponge. So you're born into, let's say, quote unquote, unconditional love. I know not everybody is, but let's just use this as a scenario. You're born into unconditional love. Mom and dad hug you, cuddle you, feed you, do everything that you are being nurtured and cared for. And then round about 2, that kind of changes. You, what they call the terrible twos. Now you're told that love's conditional. You do that, you're not going to get that. You do this, if you behave this way, I'll give you a treat. If you do this, I'll give you that. So then we begin to learn in our life that everything is conditional on the way we behave. So good girl, good boy scenario. When you're a good girl or a good boy, you get this. So if you're raised in a family where dad's busy all the time and mom might be distracted, and you want affection and you want that level of love and cuddles, you begin to learn that when I do this, I get that. So let's use this as a scenario. When I do really well in school, then dad's really pleased with me and I get a treat. So dad will take me for ice cream, or dad will give me an extra hug, or dad tells me, oh my gosh, you did really well. Well done. For that 3 seconds, I feel good about myself. And then you go into, I need to achieve harder. I need to achieve more. So we're getting into that achievement mode where all you're looking for is that gratification that dad gave you that said you did a really good job.
It's like that dopamine serotonin hit that you become addicted to, that you're looking for on a more regular basis, right?
Exactly. And this is how life goes. And there's multiples of scenarios. This is just one I've chosen, but they all set up these programs within us. So our subconscious, our unconscious is a blank slate in some degree that we start plugging these programs in. And it's when I do this, I get loved. When I do that, I get told off. When I do this, mom loves me. When I do that, dad loves me. And this continues on. And we set up these belief systems that I'm not lovable, nobody likes me, nobody hears me. When I run in and say, mommy, I've got this to tell you, and mom says, go away, I'm busy right now. I don't have the time for this right now. As a child, that goes in, you know, I'm not worthy of being heard.
I'm not important
Not,
enough at
that's right. And
the
it's not
moment.
necessarily an intellectual thought, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
So we get that feeling of, you know, oh, I did something wrong. Mom's not going to love me now. Whatever that is. And these programs that go in are constantly running 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year by our subconscious program, the same program that beats your heart, lets your lungs go in and out and gets your body to function. So they're completely unconscious. And the majority of us go through life unconscious that we have limiting beliefs. We don't know that we have limiting beliefs. We work within the realms of what we're comfortable in, and we just say words like, oh, I'm not comfortable with that, or I don't like that. But we don't recognize that is a limiting belief within us that actually stops us from moving forward. So we just put our own blocks and barriers up. So I had many. I had so many. The majority of mine were being seen, being heard. I had a lot, and I'll share one or two of them that I can share right now. So one of my biggest limiting beliefs was being seen and heard. And I was raised with, in a British community, it's better to sit there and look a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. That was one of them. And children are seen and not heard.
Yeah.
Which I know everybody can pretty much identify with that. So if you're a child that's seen and not heard, as an adult, your inner child still feels they need to be seen and not heard. So when you're in a school situation, let's say, you know the answer, but you're afraid to put your hand up because what if I get it wrong? My dad said it's better to sit there and look a fool than to open my mouth and actually be an idiot or a fool. And I need to be a child that's seen and not heard. So then these programs continue, and they continued for me all of my life until I got to the point where I moved to Canada when I was 40 years old and started working. My question to myself is, why do I behave the way I behave? Why do I do what I do? And that was this, I'm going to figure out why I do this. And I have broken free from a lot of my limiting beliefs. And part of the process of that for me was to go back to the original source. How did it make me feel? And is that true for me right now? And no, it isn't. So there's so many of them that we have. And I found through doing the coaching that I do and the training that I've done and continue to do on different levels is as adults, and this inner child is still running the programs, we live our life trying to avoid the pain that we experienced when we were young. And how that happens is we get that little voice in our head that goes, don't go there, you've been there before. Oh my God, don't do that, don't do that. You know how that worked out for you last time.
Yeah.
And you might have been 10 years old when something happened, and the 30-year-old you's going, don't do that. You know how it worked out last time. And we end up with this inner critic, which is a negative inner conversation that is constantly listening. And he's always ready to jump in and go, don't go there, don't do that. That didn't work out. Oh my God, what makes you think you can do that? Or there you go. You think you're going to win at that? No, you're not. And it's about redirecting that inner critic and rewiring the brain, because at one point they believed that the brain was hardwired and you can't change it. But now through science and everything else, they know that the brain is pliable and you can create new neural pathways and you can create new ways of thinking. You just have to be ready to let go of the old way.
It's so hard. I mean, it's like you said, there's a program constantly running, and it's like, how do you delete it? And then, okay, and then what program should I be running? So, I mean, you started to talk a little bit about how you can start to reprogram yourself, but that's scary, because now you're going into uncharted territories. Because if you grew up where your parents are saying, oh, that's dumb, don't do that, or you're not strong enough, or that's too hard, or these are all you know, motivation killers, inspiration killers, energy killers. So
Mhm.
as an adult, you know, if you want to do something new, or if you want to try something different, or you want to do something maybe wild and crazy in the professional world, like that's just killing innovation, killing productivity, killing self-worth. So how do we take that leap from I was told I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't good enough, I'm not worthy, that's not for you. How do you delete that program as an adult and, you know, seize the moment and tap into all of that untapped potential that you're sitting on and needs to be released to the world?
Absolutely. And for me, I had multiples of different ways where I started to do this. Part of one of my journeys started out doing past life regression. I had somebody that I trust that does past life do these past life experiences on me, and I got deeper understanding for certain things that kept showing up in my life. And then when I did the training as an emotions coach, that was massive for me, because I hit something in doing the training that I didn't even know was inside of me. And we were doing the training, and something that came up for me was, I never want another person to feel like they have to beg to be loved and receive small morsels and think that that's okay. And that's exactly where I was. I was a people pleaser. I was a go, 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 do everything for everybody. But what I didn't realize in the early part of my life of why I was doing that, my conversation to myself was, I like to do things for other people. I like to make people feel good. I want to make people feel better. But the truth that I didn't recognize back then was the reason why I was doing it was because I wanted to be loved.
Yeah.
I wanted to be liked. And I still love that feeling of doing things for people. But the underneath motivation was to be loved, liked, and seen. And it wasn't until I started doing the emotions coaching that came up, and it came up so big for me. I think I spent 2 hours crying when that came up, because I hadn't understood the depth that was in there. And how I do coaching with people, so the emotions coaching that I do is I listen to somebody's story. I listen to what's coming up for you. And then I will send you questions. I send you 10 questions and you answer the 10 questions. And then I'll send you 10 more based on your answers. And then we do video calls similar to what you and I are doing now. We have our own truth inside of us, because if you want to do it this way, we have the good angel on one side and the negative angel on the other, and you get those hits of inspiration. You can do that. You know you're capable of doing that. And then the little voice goes, yeah, that didn't work so well before. That's the negative inner critic. And we can break through that. And part of the process of that is recognizing when it's talking to you. We get so used to having conversations with ourselves 24 hours a day that we don't even recognize when we're speaking negatively to ourselves
Yeah, it
until
becomes the
somebody else
norm,
goes,
right? That's the norm for us then at that point.
exactly. So
Yeah.
when you start to recognize, when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, might be an example, that when you brush your teeth in the morning, you're looking in the mirror and you go, oh, God, I'm getting old. Look at all the gray hair, or there's a new wrinkle, or whatever negative thing that you say to yourself, your subconscious is always listening to that. So it's going to reinforce what you say about yourself. So then when you're walking past a big window on a high street and you see yourself and you go, ugh, and then you repeat that over and over again. And that's just a small example, but we have the ability to break free from that. And the very first step from that is recognizing what you are saying to yourself and how often you are saying it, and then redirecting your thoughts. Now, one of the things that I do in my coaching is I get people to name their inner critic. Give your inner critic a name. So my inner critic's called Ken. Doesn't matter whether you're female or male, you give it whatever name you want. My inner critic is Ken.
No one ever likes Ken anyway, so that's good name.
Yeah. So Ken, and the reason why I call my inner critic Ken was when I was younger, I always used to lose my voice.
Mm.
No surprise there, but my voice would go so husky, I would always get told I sound like a man. So instead of being Karen, I became Ken. So that's how I named my inner critic. I have multiples of clients that name them all sorts of different ways. But when I recognized how Ken was talking to me, and Ken was saying, Karen, what the hell are you doing that for? Or you can't do that. Or what makes you think you have the knowledge for that? I could shut Ken down and go, no, I'm learning something new. This isn't the direction I'm going anymore. I could say an affirmation to affirm the way I was going. I would put post-it notes everywhere. There was lots of other tools that I had. One of the biggest tools that I had was one of the statements that I had, because my voice was shut down so much, was I have a voice and I know how to use it. Right? That was my new mantra to Ken. So when Ken would jump in and say, you can't do that. Oh my God, don't stand in front of people. You know what happens when it does. Every time I touched a door handle to open my bedroom door, the front door, my car door, a door, didn't matter. I would repeat that. I have a voice and I know how to use it. Because every time I touch something, that became the connection then to retraining my brain that whenever I touch the door handle, I only have to look at the door handle now and the words, I have a voice and I know how to use it. That's one way to be able to retrain that pattern. And there's multiples of other different ways, but that's an easy one. Recognizing how you speak to yourself, give your inner critic a name, shut the inner critic down when it starts.
So would you find yourself speaking out loud, like talking to an invisible person?
What, when I'm talking to my inner critic?
Yeah, like Ken, you just be sitting there wherever you are, could be at home in public, and you've had a negative trigger or have negative thoughts, and then you stand at the grocery line, whatever, and you just talk out loud, say, no, go away, Ken, or no, I can do this.
Most of the time it would be in my head if I was out. Around people I know, first of all, if I recognize it's like, whoa, shutting that down, and somebody would say what, and it's like, oh, Ken just came up and this is what Ken said, and shutting Ken down. Yeah, so you can do out loud, you can do inside your head. Sometimes you don't want to be put in a straitjacket and carted off somewhere, so you know, saying it inside of your head too, or in a place of safety. I have family members and friends now that will outwardly tell their inner critic because they're at home safe with their loved ones who know what's going on, and outwardly go and shut them down immediately that way.
So whatever works for you, right? I mean, if it's just quietly in your head, or if you actually need to yell it and scream it out at that moment, obviously preferably at home,
or in your vehicle, or you know, not in the middle of a grocery store while you're picking up apples.
One of the things I'm going to guess is probably important, because so far you've talked about doing this on your own, right? This is you alone, struggling, trying to make some positive gains. I'm going to assume that helping you along, you have to be around supportive individuals, whether it's friends or family, you know, because often what we're told in our childhood, that you can't do it or you're not good enough, sometimes it continues in the people who surround us as adults still, right? So what can you talk about in terms of the support structure around us? Yeah,
so certainly doing coaching has massively helped me. I've had my own coaches and now I am a coach myself. So getting coaching, because you need that accountability and the process to be able to keep going in that momentum in making changes. Environment is a huge thing. So if you are in a toxic environment and you know inside of you that something desperately needs to change, then environment shift is huge. Now, if you're in a home and you cannot change your home environment, you can certainly change a small portion of that. Perhaps you can change a bedroom or a corner in the house somewhere, that when you move into that space, it gives you your space. having like-minded people around you that will call you and say, you know, when you say certain words, to redirect you, because our words are incredibly powerful, and we don't recognize how powerful our words are. And I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I used to teach sound therapy, and I had a group of people I was teaching sound therapy to, and anything that was negative that came up, I'd put a glass of water in one room and a glass of water in the kitchen, and told them anything negative, speak it to the water, get rid of it and speak it to the water. And then one in the other room was only positive. Now, by the end of the evening, that water smelled like stagnant water. And including myself, we were all shocked at how stagnant that water smelled. Now, anybody who's researched Dr. Emoto knows of that. And Dr. Emoto talks about how energy holds patterns, or water holds energy patterns. So when you think about, we are mostly water, when we speak negatively to ourselves on a daily basis, we're constantly reaffirming that into our crystalline energy in our own physicality. So having somebody around you that will redirect you when you're speaking negatively, either outwardly about the world, like the world's gone to hell in a handbasket. No, what's positive that you see in the world? Redirect, 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 and you're constantly redirecting until it becomes a new habit. Again, doing affirmations, creating a space for yourself at home. Perhaps it's, if you can't at home, but you can get out now, the weather's better, you can find a park to go into, meditate. And I know people find it difficult sometimes to meditate, but even if you can find something that you enjoy listening to, there are so many tools. Journaling is another way of getting your thoughts out on paper. There's so many different ways out there that you can really start to break through. And as you spoke of earlier, that comfort zone that we're in, we can become very comfortable with being miserable, and we stay there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when it gets uncomfortable, when things get really uncomfortable for you, that's when you're just about to break out of that comfort zone into a new one. Because when you're discovering about yourself, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to bring things up that, like an elastic band, it wants to go back to where it was. Well, you don't want to go back to where you were. You want to continue to stretch and expand that comfort zone.
I see in so many people that the tension, the struggle between logic and emotion. For example, you know that if you cross that bridge, you know that life is going to be better. You know that 100%, you know it, but you're still here, right? Because now the emotional part of it is driving the bus. But you know that 100%, if you go there, life will be better, whatever it is. You'll be happier, you'll have more money, like whatever it is for you, kind of thing. But we still sit in our comfort zone, and we don't move out of fear or out of self-defeating thoughts or whatever it is. So it's a really it can be really bizarre, that logic versus emotional tension.
It is, and it's our emotions, like you say, that drive the bus. But the thing is about the emotions driving the bus, it's not the 20, 30, 40-year-old you that's driving the bus. It's still the 5, 6, and 7-year-old that had that experience that's driving the bus. And one of the things I say to my coaching clients is, if you could buy any vehicle, what would that be? What would it be? You could drive it off the parking lot. What would it be? So let's use a Lamborghini, because that's the one that jumped into my head right now. So there's a Lamborghini ready for you to get in it and drive it. Is your inner critic and your inner child going to be the one that drives you to their destination? Or are you going to start working with your inner child and healing that part of yourself so you can get in the driver's seat and drive your vehicle to your destination the way you want to go, not the way that somebody's still trying to protect themselves from feeling something they felt 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
For those people who still have parents around, this is going to be a weird question, just popped into my head. Have you seen, or would it be valuable, because if the source of a lot of our issues is with our parents, have you seen people going back and sitting down with mom and or dad and say, hey, I'm finding I'm acting like this. And I think it might be because of, obviously you got to do it in a way where they're not becoming so defensive. But have you seen people talking with their parents about this and just almost like a
Perhaps.
therapy, just to say,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see how I may have treated you like that, just on their journey of maybe getting better?
Yeah, I have. And I've actually heard of people that have had those conversations with their parents, and they recognize that they were holding limiting belief. They recognize that, oh my gosh, I've been doing this. And not only did I do it, my mom did it and my grandmother did it.
Yeah.
And I hadn't realized that I passed that on to you. And thank you very much for bringing that to my attention, because that's how generational patterns are created. Mom did it, grandmother did it, or dad did it, grandfather did it, and we continue with those generational patterns. But one of the things that I do know is that there is always, always, always going to be somebody that comes along in a family that says, no, I'm going to break this pattern and I'm going to change it. And sometimes they're made to be or named the black sheep of the family. Sometimes they're disassociated with family because they don't fit in with, well, it's always been this way. If you're that kind of person that is called the black sheep or is shunned by your family, then maybe you're doing some big breakthrough work, that you are changing generational patterns that will not continue through you.
Well, I'm just thinking about myself now when you're talking about that. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. You're absolutely right. Just even the language we talk, right, as parents. Well, that's how I was raised, or that's how your grandmother or your grandfather, or I never got that when I was your age. All these little things that we say as parents, right? And you're right, it's passed from generation to generation, which I mean, the good things that are passed, that's awesome. But a lot of the things are not good. They're just, they're behaviors and routines that are forged in the era, and not always applicable in today's environment. Having working on the farm and having a very strong command and control environment with the family of, kids, 12 kids, and everyone had a job to do. You weren't a son or a daughter, you're like a worker. That was your primary responsibility. Well, that doesn't apply today. So having that kind of parental mode where it's command and control and there's a lack of affection, and it's more about what you produce and less about the quality of the person you are. Yeah, I could see a lot of mental health issues as a result of it. And I think that's one of the key areas, one of the drivers of our mental health issues today, is that we're raising kids to be poor adults, and we're just perpetuating that generation to generation. It needs to stop.
Yeah, well, the last several years has certainly played into that, where we were separated and we were unable to connect, and children didn't have then the connection with school friends, and everything became online, which, like we mentioned right at the beginning, in some places is a really good tool, but it's not a way of life. We were not designed as human beings to be separate, be alone. We were designed to be in community. We were created to be in community, because when we're in community, we raise the level of the community. We have your elders that have seen a lot and experienced a lot, that then are able to use that wisdom to be able to support a young adult or a child moving up. They hold space. Well, if you want to continue to do that, then do it and see where you are at the end, and then come back to me if you're willing to learn and experience. And we've gotten so far away from family community, so far away from sitting at a dining room table and having a meal, so far away from just having a conversation. I watch my granddaughter with her girlfriend when she comes round, and they can be sat next to each other, both on the phone. and everything's done in a abbreviated text. I've had to learn a brand new language in text because it's like, what does that mean? Because it's 3 letters for a whole word.
And
And
there's no emotion in it. There's no quality of connection because you're not expressing yourself in a passionate, emotional way. You're not getting angry, which can be beneficial and constructive to a
absolutely.
relationship. You're not crying, you're not laughing out loud, like you're not releasing all of those energies if you're just typing to each other, right? It's
No.
very subdued, and it's like your whole body is just, in mind is just on a quiet, low mode. As you know, when you get together with people, your energy goes up because you're energized usually
Exactly.
by the others, and it's expressed in laughter and having fun and maybe getting hit in the head in the ball and crying, and then you're good and way you go again, you're back playing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's the lack of connection that we're having physically, especially with kids, which is problematic. The other thing that I really, really would love to see change in our society in North America is, let's stop putting our elders in homes. Let's
Yeah.
have grandma and grandpa live with us here. And there's a ton of benefits in doing so. A lot of them you already elaborated on.
Mhm. Society changed so much, when women went from being the primary caregiver at home to having to go to work so that everybody could survive. And I know that I have so many women in my life from varying ages that would love to be at home raising their children, but because of the way society is, it's not feasible because they don't have enough money to be able to pay, particularly now, for what they need to pay for. So it's that emotional rip inside of a mom, particularly, to be a working mom or stay at home mom. Now, I know lots of dads are in that position too, where it's that choice between, do I be a stay at home dad or go to work? And very often going to work to earn enough money to be able to quote unquote survive is where we go. And in the process of that, we lose a lot of connection.
Yeah.
And when we had home, I mean, homes are pretty big here in Canada, where you could have grandparents living at home or in a granny flat, and only if they get to the point where they are medically
Yep.
incapable
Yep.
of being taken care of at home, then transition there. But I agree with you. It's very interesting when you sit back and you become the observer of where we are. It's that pendulum swinging the complete opposite direction to bring us back to values. And I think the 3 years that we spent in and out of being isolated, a lot of our values and our beliefs were challenged then. And being able to, what works for me? What do I really want to do? I know so many people that have given up working a corporate job or a 9-to-5 job that have ended up creating, incomes for themselves and actually tapping into what they love, which is phenomenal.
That's exactly it. You took the words right out of my mouth. The last 3 years was a forced disruption, to say the very least, in a lot of people's
Mhm.
lives. But I think there was a tremendous benefit that it woke them up a bit in terms of, oh, yeah, why am I, say, commuting for 3 hours a day, Monday to Friday? Maybe, maybe we could live a simpler life. Maybe we can live, maybe we need to move out of the city, and maybe we downsize our home, maybe live a bit more affordably. Do we really need to take 6 vacations in a year? Do we really need a new car every 4 years? A lot of people, I think, started to ask themselves some questions. And again, the pendulum, I think, is starting to go back. A lot of people, I think, have answered that question. Yeah, I think I prefer maybe only one of us needing to work so I can raise our kids. And maybe that means we need to sell the house and move somewhere where it's less expensive, or the property taxes are less, where maybe we grow a bit more of our own food, and just have a more fulfilled life. And I'm seeing more and
Mhm.
more of that, which is really great to see.
And that plays right back into limiting belief. So right there, that plays right back into limiting belief. And yes, there's a certain program being perpetuated, but within that, it's if I give up doing this, what will people think of me? Can I create my own income doing this? What is Aunt Sally or Uncle Joe or mom and dad or whatever going to think if I decide I'm going to give up $100,000 a year corporate job to start gardening or start doing something else that I absolutely love? And going back and asking yourself those questions, we are built into consumerism because the consumerism actually gives us a false sense of achievement. It feeds that need to be seen to be successful. It feeds that need to, when I go on 6 vacations, or I have 3 cars parked in the driveway, or I have this, it gives the illusion to everybody else that I am successful. Even if I lay in bed at night wondering how I'm going to make the next payment, the outside world believes I'm successful. But the only way that changes is when you change it within yourself. So looking at that limiting belief of why, if you are into consumerism, which isn't, if that's your lifestyle, then perfect. But ask yourself why. Is it because I enjoy the consumerism and I enjoy being able to buy things because it fills me up? Or am I doing it because I want to be seen to be successful?
Yeah, a lot of people have those measures of I've achieved, the number of vacations, I have this, I have that, so I must be doing well, and that makes me, feel good. But like you said, at the end of the day, are you really happy? And whatever makes you happy, I think everyone needs to reflect on it. Really, how do you want to be living? What is happiness for you? And does that mean less work, more time with your family and friends, living in a house that you have a ability to maintain and grow food in a nice big backyard, or not? If you want to take thousands of vacations, that's whatever it is. But I think the
Exactly.
past 3 years have encouraged everyone to rethink a little bit about their measuring stick, and how people can make those changes to them.
Yeah, because that measuring stick is actually you measuring yourself against someone else. What's my internal measuring stick?
Yeah.
Is my internal measuring stick when I'm outside with my feet in the grass, I feel alive? Is my internal measuring stick when I'm with my family doing X, Y, and Z, and we could be just sat at the park, I feel alive? Or is my measuring stick based on so and so down the street has something and they look really successful, and so I want what they have? So it's figuring out where that measuring stick is also.
And overcoming your self-limiting beliefs in order
Yes.
to get there, because then it becomes, oh, that's too hard, or I can't do that because so and so did it, because whatever, they had more of this, more of that, whatever. So it's overcoming the beliefs that you can achieve whatever you want. You have to figure out really for yourself, truly, what is it that you want.
Yeah. What's the most annoying question a kid asks you growing up? Why? Why? Start asking yourself some whys. Why do I want it? Why do I need it? What will I experience when I have it? And what is it costing me not to have it? Or what is it costing me right now to continue doing what I'm doing? But those why questions are powerful questions when you're actually honest with yourself and start asking those why questions.
Those are all fantastic questions to be asking ourselves. Karen, if someone wanted to find out more about your coaching, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can reach me on Rebels Compass on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, and on by email, which is karen@rebelscompass.com, or on my website, which is www.rebelscompass.com. They can get to me that way.
I'll attach those to the comments on this video as well. Any last words of wisdom for us, Karen?
I think my last words would be, if you feel inside of you on any level that there is something more for you, then follow that feeling. Reach out to me, find the right person, whoever that is for you, and follow that feeling. because on the other side of fear is life. And you don't know how amazing that is until you actually let go of the fear.
Don't be afraid to take that very first step.
Absolutely. It lasts 2 seconds. Well, 2 minutes. That feeling of fear goes up for 2 minutes. The emotion climbs, and then it dissipates. And the more often you do it, the less the fear is.
Karen, it's always a pleasure talking with
Thank you so much.
seeing you. I wish you all the best and hope to talk with you again soon.
Absolutely. I look forward to having you and Jessica on Rebels again.
We always look forward to it. We're probably due for another one soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Karen. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.